Welcome. Welcome back in to The Future is Female. Hoping everybody's having a great week so far. I, of course, am your host, Gabby Ducharme, joined here, as always, by my legendary co-host, Nicole Pinter. Nicole, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. On our recording, it is Mandalorian Eve. At the time this is premiering, I will have already seen the first episode of The Mandalorian. I'm so excited. Oh my God. I've needed this show back in my life so bad. I need the child.
And of course, you guys already know the drill. If you want to see her background and you want to see us on screen, you got to go to our YouTube channel to watch the full episode, which will come out after we premiere this episode on Friday at 4 p.m. as always. So, of course, Nicole, The Mandalorian comes out tomorrow, and there's a lot of sports news to go over today. So let's just get right into it. Starting off, of course, we had a new World Series champion crowned, the LA Dodgers. Nicole, break it down for us. What happened this week?
Well, Dodgers won it in 6 games. They won this 3-1. There's a lot of stories with this, and it started in the sixth inning and it didn't end there. We start with the Rays starting pitcher Blake Snell was pulled after 5 1/3 innings pitched, no earned runs. He'd only given up his second hit to the number 9 hitter, and Kevin Cash, the Rays manager, didn't want Snell to see the lineup a third time, and they threw in Anderson, and he gave up a double, and the game was pretty much over at that point.
Right.
He was lights out, and Snell was, of course, disappointed and upset in the decision, as he should be. He was dealing, and this has brought up a lot of discussion on analytics. A lot of people saying get analytics out of the game. To that I say, yes. I don't think analytics are all bad, but also you got to look at what's happening on the field. If Snell is dealing and he was only at his 73rd pitch, you let him keep dealing. If he gives up a single the bets, then maybe you pull him there, but there's no reason to at that point. He was lights out on the top of the order. Dodgers took advantage, and Dodgers were clearly the better team in this series. Rays were fighting to stay alive in a crazy Game 5, and Dodgers ended up winning.
Here's my one thing with it. The fact that the Dodgers did win, they spend almost 4 times as much as the Tampa Bay Rays do on their lineup.
Yeah, it's insane.
Their salary is like literally 4 times as much as Tampa Bay. I don't know what the exact number is. I probably should know, but that number alone, I mean, you want to discuss analytics. I get it. Numbers don't tell the whole story. In this circumstance, numbers told the whole story. The LA Dodgers spent more money and had more money to fiddle around with and have been in the World Series now. This is the 4th time in 5 years they've been in the World Series?
Something like that.
Yeah, they've been in the World Series. They were in it in 2016 when the Cubs, your Cubs, Nicole, won. They were in it in 2017 when the Astros did what the Astros do. They were in it in 2019 when the Nationals upset them and, essentially shocked the entire MLB world. And now
in
they're
the NLCS, yeah.
Yeah. Was that the NLCS?
Yes.
Yeah, so but you get my point. Like, they've been there for the last 5+ years.
Either NLCS or World Series, yeah.
In all honesty, I feel like this is long overdue for them to finally get it done. It is especially long overdue. And you discuss a team like this with the success that they've had on field this season. My question to you, is this sustainable long term?
I think so. I think LA should be expecting more titles, especially with Mookie Betts. I want to know how many runs he stole in the playoffs, because it's at least 5, maybe more, with how many he stole at the wall. It's insane. He was a difference maker. Kershaw was silencing the critics in this playoff series, in the World Series too.
He was.
And it really just came together for them this year. And there's no asterisk. They were clearly the better team, even 60 games, expanded playoffs. They were clearly the better team.
Right.
So I think Dodgers fans should be expecting at least getting back to the World Series sometime soon.
And I will say the one thing we can take away from this celebration-wise is that, like, at least Los Angeles fans like myself, this is the first time the Lakers and the Dodgers have both won a championship in the same season since 1988. That was also the last time the LA Dodgers even won a World Series. So you look at the narrative behind all of that with Kobe Bryant, with the Lakers doing what they did in the bubble, with the Dodgers doing what they have done in the bubble. It's a pretty special time to be a Los Angeles sports fan. Granted, when is it not? Because there are so many teams in the Los Angeles area, and the city just has abundant amount of monies, abundant amount of money to spend on athletes. That's why star players do come to Los Angeles in whatever sport you're discussing, whether it's baseball or basketball or football or college football or any number of things. But on one end, it's a time of celebration. It's a time to look back and remember the greatness that was on the field the other night. On another end, it was also a time of controversy and question. Of course, based around none other than COVID-19, the beast, the competitor that continues lingering over this country and all professional sports and every single person's lives. The competitor that has literally taken over 200,000 lives in this country in the last 7 months. Nicole, what happened on the field the other night in regards to COVID-19?
Well, it wasn't learned until after the game. Essentially, Justin Turner was removed from the game following the 7th inning after testing positive for COVID. During the 2nd inning of the game, the lab doing the COVID tests for the Dodgers and the Rays notified MLB that Turner's test from the day before, Monday, came back inconclusive. The tests from the day of the game had just arrived and were run. Turner showed up positive twice, so this cancels out any possibility of it being a false positive, like I think myself and many others were hoping after what we saw in the postgame. And the league immediately called the Dodgers and told them to pull Turner. This from Jeff Passan of ESPN on Twitter. The more I thought about it, the more concerned I got, because he was on the field for so long. It's First Take is now talking about this as we speak. He was on the field for so long in the dugout next to Rays players. And not to mention the staff of MLB working the game, people working the game who really don't have a choice of being around him or not. And somehow, he went to what they're saying is a doctor's office to isolate, but then he shows up on the field to hold the trophy, kiss his wife, which that part's fine, and be around the players. And the players might have said it's okay, but their kids never said it was okay. The staff never said it was okay. It's mind-boggling to me how MLB and Rob Manfred, who knows what happened in the postgame with him, how they handled this. MLB is investigating it, but I'm not mad at. I'm upset with Turner for going back out there, but it's the World Series. Emotions run high. He wanted to go back out there and celebrate with his team, and he deserved to. And I get that, but it's also so selfish of him. And how did this happen? How did he even get the choice? It shouldn't have been his choice. The Dodgers or MLB should have driven him right back to the hotel.
And that's where I want to chime in, because my frustration level with how the MLB has handled essentially the entire pandemic is about to here. I know you can't see my hand right now. My hand is high. My frustration level is high because the league has placed money in front of protecting people pretty much since day one. You want to look back at what the MLB did back in April, May, June. They weren't fighting over how they would safely play. They were fighting over how much money they should earn and how many games they can pack in to an already shortened season. In an era where people were fighting to just keep low-end paying jobs, trying to make pennies by the hour, the MLB was fighting over millionaires. That's essentially what it came down to. It was millionaires fighting with billionaires. It was frustrating to watch. And now, with what Justin Turner did the other night, it was another direct reflection of what is wrong with professional sports today. They think they are the alpha male that can rise above the rest. I've got news for you. I've got news for people who listen to this show. You're not an alpha male. You do not get to rise above a pandemic. You do not get to rise above a disease that has killed over almost 250,000 people in this country alone in 7 months. You don't get the right to do that. You don't get the right to put people in danger because you believe you have the right to celebrate. I get it. I get it that you're excited. but that excitement does not outweigh what the real issue is. The fact that the MLB once again let down this country. It mirrors the fact that many people in this country feel let down over the last 7 months. So hopefully the MLB does get to the bottom of it. I don't really know what there is to investigate other than them owning up to the fact that they should have kept him in isolation and he should not have been around a large group of people right after the game. That's just me. You know, I have very strong feelings on it as well. I feel like I'm in the minority of people that like almost felt like sports just shouldn't have come back, period. I look back on it now, I kind of digress that, but it is still a massive argument. It's still something that's going to be cracked open and something people need to remember. People need to remember how selfish it looked, the fact that he was on the field. So hopefully going forward, we will get to the bottom of what happened with the MLB the other night. Of course, Dodgers are now your World Series champions. Moving, though, from baseball to football, the NFL, we had another jam-packed weekend, starting with right here in Phoenix, the Arizona Cardinals. Nicole, what happened with this young squad this weekend?
Dude, I don't know what happened. That game towards the end of the fourth quarter, just it got wild. It got hilarious. I'm really glad I wasn't really rooting for anyone except maybe DK Metcalf to do something for my fantasy team. But he did do something. It wasn't like he did nothing. DK Metcalf is a grown man. Oh my gosh. Him chasing down Buda Baker, that was insane. That was ridiculous. They were down 10. Cardinals were down 10 with like 4 or 5 minutes left. Right. They came back, were able to get 10 points on the board, pushed it to overtime. And then, as always with the Seahawks and Seahawks-Cardinals in particular, these games are always weird. Nearly could have tied, got down to that point, got under a minute. Cardinals won with a field goal. Gabby, what were your thoughts of this just hilarious game?
Honestly, like I remember sitting there watching it because it was like Sunday Night Football. It was this huge deal. Every media outlet in Phoenix was just running with this whole thing that the Cardinals have now had 2 back-to-back games on Monday Night Football and then on Sunday Night Football. So it was like this huge deal. It's like, ooh, the Cardinals are turning heads. And it's like, oh, but it's against Russell Wilson, you know, like the MVP front runner, the Super Bowl champion. And of course, I found myself almost laughing at the TV because for one thing, there was like, you know, there was the chase down by DK Metcalf. There was the, oh yes, there it is right there, folks. The chase down by DK Metcalf. And of course, it was just so fun to watch. Like, I feel like I don't have a lot of fun watching football. Sunday night, I had fun watching that game. Kyler Murray is exciting. Murray is a bad dude. He's won NFC Player of the Week now for the second straight week, and I think for the 3rd time this season, which is a pretty big deal considering he's only a second-year guy. There were so many questions with him coming into the league, and now the fact that he's actually kind of, I don't know if I want to say popping, but showing glimpses of what he's capable of. I think it's fun. I really, really do. I think it's awesome. And then of course there's there was this moment. There was a missed field goal in the game as well. There was a missed field goal in the game, and it was quite an exciting moment, I guess. It made the game more fun. It was by
the Cardinals. It was by ASU alum Zane Gonzalez. I'm confused how this was fun for you.
It just reminded me of one particular moment that Nicole would probably be remembering at the moment.
It wasn't even a doink, right? The Rice kicker already upped us on that with a quadruple doink this past weekend. So it's not no. So this actually brings me to yes, Zane Gonzalez kind of bailed out Cliff Kingsbury. Never settle for the field goal. This is something the Bears did last year, actually.
Yeah.
With the same kicker, I think. I don't even remember. But no, it wasn't.
But still on their team?
No, he was gone after this one. Yeah.
Okay.
But never settle for the field goal. Keep playing. Keep moving the ball if you can. I don't get that. But moving on from Gabby trying to dig at me here.
I absolutely am digging at her. For people who can't see my Zoom screen, I have. Well, it's a moment in Bears history that people don't love to look back on. It's the moment where they doinked their kick.
It's a decent attempt. I'll give you that. You're trying to equate Zane Gonzalez missing with a doink in the playoffs. There, I said it. Good try. A for effort, I guess. But this brings me to the Cardinals' offense looked better this week than they did last week against Dallas. Much improved. Christian Kirk's caught insane pass. I mean, Kyler Murray was really good this game. Both quarterbacks threw almost 50 passes, and the Cardinals' defense forced Russell to throw 3 interceptions, one which ended up costing them the game in overtime. And credit to Vance Joseph on that. He would have 7 guys up at the line and then drop 4 of them back, confusing Russell Wilson, thinking he had a time and be a receiver to throw to, or thinking he didn't have time and a receiver open who would be wide open. So great looks by Vance Joseph. But on the Seahawks side, they got no pressure on Kyler Murray. So the Seahawks traded for defensive end Carlos Dunlap from the Bengals, which is much needed help for them. Any final thoughts on this game, Gabby?
It was fun. I'm having fun on today's show digging at you. I had fun Sunday night. You didn't have quite as much fun Sunday, Nicole. Bears Corner. Break it down. What happened to your Chicago Bears this weekend?
Yeah, this is Monday night. This is arguably Matt Nagy's worst game. Bears lost 24-10 to the Rams. The defense held on for as long as they could, but the offense just couldn't move the ball down the field. Foles was bad on Monday night, but Matt Nagy's play calling was horrific. Probably the worst all season. 3rd and 1, and we're a halfback toss to Cordell Patterson. Everyone knows what's coming, and there's no offensive line to block for him either. So really tough loss for the Bears. Bouncing back is going to be even harder. This was only the start of like a gauntlet type run before the season eases a little bit. Okay.
You mentioned tough losses for the Bears. How was this loss for the Bears?
It was 2 years ago. Anyway, Saints and Titans in the coming weeks. See, you got me with this looking in the past thing. Who's looking in the past now? Anyways, Saints, Titans. He's on the Browns. He joined in a field goal for them. I'm happy for him. He's accurate. He's good. Saints and Titans.
He was on your team.
Saints, Titans. We have Cairo Santos is actually pretty good. Okay, I think he's missed like 1 kick this season so far. But Saints, Titans in the coming weeks. Saints at home. I'm not sure about the Titans, but tough to come back from. Nagy's really gonna have to step it up. And Bears need an offensive line. I think they need to bite at the trade deadline on someone, or wait it out and see who they can get off the waiver wire or sign. They need offensive line help so bad. I mean, Nick Foles even said maybe it wasn't supposed to get out, but he already said to Brian Greasy, he knows when plays Nagy gives him aren't going to work because he knows he's not going to have time. That's bad. Foles was bad. Nagy has frustrated me basically since that loss that you keep bringing up, because his play calling in that game was bad. His play calling ever since has been questionable, and it makes me mad. Real quick.
And it makes her mad. Just to be clear, folks, she's mad.
Nagy infuriates me. He needs to hand over play calling duties.
I just gotta ask Nicole, are the Bears a fraud? Like, is this?
They certainly proved experts right this week in being, the worst 5-1, now 5-2 team. The good news for the Bears is they're still 5-2, and they're still at the top of the NFC North, right there with the Packers.
Right.
And the Vikings are terrible, and the Lions are going to be like 8-8. So maybe, at best. So,
but people always say it's not how you start, it's how you finish. So I'm going to be curious to see what they do in the second half of the season.
Yeah, that will mean a lot. And there's an extra playoff spot, so they can still get there. Bucks, real quick, just to wrap this up, the Bucks signed AB, Antonio Brown. He will be eligible after week 8, so week 9. Gabby, I don't even think the Bucks need Antonio Brown, but Tom Brady's been so good this season, and the Bucks are only going to get better.
My thing is, if there's one person who could handle the head case that is Antonio Brown, it's probably Tom Brady. So may as well give Antonio Brown a chance to win a ring, I guess. I don't know. I don't think he deserves one, but I think it'll be a fun storyline, honestly. Like, why not throw another like wrench into the system? Why not get AB back in there? It's fun for people like you and me to talk about. I don't really see him like making or breaking that team though. I think the team's already stable. Like Tom Brady's like 43 years old and he's an MVP candidate right now. No shock there, but
He has brought a culture change to Tampa, and it's been huge. So we'll see what that does with AB. And even more so than that, it's wide receiver depth. Chris Godwin is having surgery. Mike Evans, I think, it's had issues. So it's wide receiver depth, which is really important. Keeping up with football, yeah. Big Ten had their opening weekend. Indiana upset Penn State in overtime on a controversial call. People saying didn't hit the pylon to hit the ground first. It crossed the plane. It had already crossed the plane before it hit out of bounds. Gabby, I don't know if you saw the play, but did you have any thoughts?
Oh, honestly, like I didn't actually see the play, but like hearing about it, it sounds like it was like, I don't know, like was it like a mistake that the referees made? Was it a mistake that like they made when they were calling the play back? Like what happened?
It took a long time to review. Basically, either way it was called, I don't think it could have been overturned. So they made the right call and not overturning it. They didn't confirm it. They just said it stood.
Right.
But big win for Indiana, and Penn State looking to Ohio State this weekend, trying to avoid going 0-2 on what would be whiteout, but unfortunately there's no fans, so not really. Ohio State dominated Nebraska. Nebraska started out kind of hot, and then Justin Fields took over and had a nearly perfect game. Graham Mertz of Wisconsin also had a nearly perfect game in his victory over Illinois. Wisconsin and Nebraska were scheduled to play this weekend. Graham Mertz tested positive for COVID, unfortunately, as well as many other players. They were down to their fourth-string QB, and this game has been canceled. It will not be rescheduled. Nebraska was trying to schedule a game with FCS Chattanooga. Big Ten shut that down, and obviously Nebraska fans are upset. Should Nebraska be able to play that game? Maybe. But you know what? If Nebraska leaves the Big Ten after this season, then it was all worth it.
I would just like to point out, honestly, like to kind of wrap up this college football segment, once again, the biggest competitor that these teams are facing this year is not the person that they see across the field. It's the disease that continues to ravage this country and is going to continue to ravage this country until people actually try to do something about it. But, of course, switching from, I guess, rather negative thoughts to more positive ones. Nicole, what's going on with your boys in blue?
Oh, they were so good. I would have appreciated a few more stops from the defense. Obviously, it wasn't a perfect game by any means. There were still things to clean up. But, end of October to finally start the season, it was so good. Joe Milton is so good. Michigan finally has a quarterback. He was making throws that Michigan fans haven't seen since Chad Henne, probably.
Right.
Which is over a decade ago. So, who scored a touchdown in the Chiefs game against the Broncos? I'm so happy for him. I don't know how he's still in the league, but good for him. He's getting that bag. 49-24 victory over Minnesota for Michigan. They keep the little brown jug at home. And everyone was picking Minnesota. You know what? Jim Harbaugh wasn't even wearing khakis, and they got it done. Go Blue. They take on Michigan State, who lost to Rutgers this weekend for the Battle of the Paul Bunyan Trophy, to going for a third straight victory in that game. Moving on to the NBA. There's been some NBA news this week. NBA looking to start the season around Christmas Day, maybe even before. Training camp will be December 1st. Gabby, take us through that and your thoughts. Obviously, you're excited.
I mean, I'm excited, but I'm also a little bit worried because of how short the off season is for teams like the Heat and the Lakers, and just people who played in the bubble in general. That's honestly that's where my brain goes first. I'm a little bit worried. I'm like, okay, I understand you need to make Christmas Day deadlines. I understand you need to fulfill media and TV deals and stuff, but please, like, give the players enough time to heal after 3.5 months in isolation, and like. I don't really understand exactly how the NBA season will work either because of like will they go into a bubble format? I don't think they will go to another bubble format again because it'll be all 30 teams playing again. That's at least what I'm hearing. And so I'm excited because I love NBA Christmas Day. Like for me, Christmas morning, it doesn't mean like opening presents like when I was really, really young, when I was 5 years old. For me, Christmas morning means 9 a.m. There is a basketball game on the East Coast, and there's just going to be games on nonstop the entire day. That's what Christmas means for me, and it's always been my favorite day of the year. My dad and I, when I was young, we used to make bets on who would win each game. Every single year, I would end up winning, mostly because my dad would let me literally pick like 4 out of the 5 games. And then he would pick like the last game, and it was like always the worst one. And he would always pick the losing team. And I figured it out later on when I wasn't 10 years old anymore. I was like, oh, he was letting me win. That's cute. Like, thank you, Dad. So those are the memories that I have from like Christmas Day NBA. I think it would be super exciting to see the league back on that day. It would be a really fun way to end a very crummy year. It would be a memorable moment in a year that people otherwise wish they could just forget. The league is saying that they want to try and jam in 72 games between December 25th and essentially sometime around July. We don't know that exact date yet because they haven't come out with like an official schedule, but the Olympic Games are slated to start on, I believe, July 22nd, 2021. The NBA wants to wrap up by the time the Olympics are set to start, so either June, late June, early July, so that players can then go and play in the Olympic Games. I don't know how that would affect the Team USA roster. I think it could end up hurting USA basketball come the Olympics next summer. I don't think the NBA should be trying to jam that many games into that short of time. The league has been shot in the foot before for doing that. But if you cut down on back-to-backs, you go down to like a 60-game schedule or even a 50-game schedule, I think it would benefit the league long-term. Obviously, that's not the direction they're heading in. They want to jam in as many games as they can in as short of a period as they can. So it should be exciting going forward. Of course, wrapping up today's show, we're going to hit our brand new segment, Future Fantasies. Nicole, what is your future fantasy? What's one thing that you hope you can change in the future that hasn't been changed in the past?
I'm on mute. Right now, this is really sad news that keeps happening. Michigan State is the second Big Ten school to discontinue men's and women's swimming and diving program. Iowa was the first a few weeks ago. I don't know how to save it, but saving college swimming and diving and other Olympic sports. Michigan State only cut swimming and diving. Iowa had cut swimming and diving along with other Olympic sports. Stanford cut like 12 Olympic sports earlier this year. It's just really sad to see. And especially in the Big Ten, like the Big Ten's a really good swimming conference. I'm up there with the best. So it's always sad to see another swim program go for what feels like an AD looking for an excuse to save a little money. These are a lot of good swimmers have come out of the Big Ten in general, Michigan State and Iowa also. So this is really sad, and I just save college swimming and diving. It's amazing.
Yeah, saving college swimming and diving, such a huge part of collegiate athletics and Title IX and so many other movements that have built it up to this point. Of course, if there's one thing I could save, I would essentially want to change the way that ownership is run in professional sports. I would want players to kind of have a stake in whatever team they play on, because I think players should be in more control of like what happens, what decisions are made in the front office, what decisions are made up top, because at the end of the day, it ends up affecting them more than it does the people in the press box. I hate the dynamic that there is in professional sport that like athletes are like these people just kind of being used to make money. And I get it. Professional sports are completely run by money and they're run by billionaire and millionaire owners and stuff. But I think that owners and players need to unite together a little bit more. I think owners need a little less need to relinquish some of that control that they have over teams, and players should have more of a role in what happens upstairs and what happens kind of in their own futures. I think we're heading in that direction, at least in the NBA. I don't know though if we'll ever be like at that point, because that would take a lot of sacrifice on the end of the owners, and owners are notorious for not being super forgiving or giving in general. So that's my future fantasy. We'll see if it ever happens, but that's it for this week on The Future is Female. Of course, for Nicole Pinter, I'm Gabby Ducharme. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We will see you guys next week. Until then, stay healthy and stay safe.